is there any relationship between HDB and condo prices? If HDB prices keep climbing, then condo prices will run away and then it'll be a huge property bubble and then poof. Is the rise of unsold private homes a ticking time bomb? The number of unsold new private homes has risen by 20% over the last 2 years and is set to keep growing this year as more projects come to market. Fail to clear all or most of their units, developers will be hit by hefty stamp duty payments of millions of dollars. Is a property bubble brewing? What will happen to the developers with unsold units? Let's dive deeper into some of the online comments and see if their concerns are valid and justified. For the first comment, what happens in the worst case scenario? With many unsold units, is it possible for developers to face liquidity issues and maybe even go bust? Housing developers are subject to an additional buyer's stamp duty or ABSD of 40% on the land price. So of this 40%, 35% is remissible upfront. So if they manage to sell at least 90% of the units within a 5-year deadline from when they last acquired the land, then this portion of the remissible portion doesn't have to be paid back. If not, they will have to pay it back with interest. The clawback rate is lower for developers if they hit that 90% mark, and the rate itself depends on how many unsold units are left remaining. So it could range anywhere from 15% to 35%. And in dollar terms, that could be millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, since land costs millions of dollars or even $1 billion. In some cases, the developers may choose to pay up this ABSD amount and then slowly sell any remaining units in their own time. So this is especially so if the land was acquired earlier on, so the ABSD rate is lower, say 15% instead of 35%. Would they go bust? Well, fortunately in Singapore, there have been hardly any recent precedents of this happening, of developers going bust and then leaving home buyers in a very dire straits. So if you are a home buyer, I think you can rest assured you should be fine. The next comment is about property bubbles. Are we in it now? Is it going to bust anytime soon? What exactly is a property housing bubble? So that happens when prices rise beyond a sustainable level, driven by speculation and demand. There are also other factors at play, of course, like easy credit availability or low interest rates. One of the most infamous bubbles that happened was in the US between 2007 and around 2010. It was largely caused by predatory lending, so people were taking up a lot of loans that they couldn't actually afford. When that bubble burst, there was a huge wave of foreclosures, mortgage defaults rose, resulting in massive losses for financial institutions. This eventually triggered the global financial crisis that affected us back home in Singapore as well. So will anything of that scale happen in Singapore? Not being a government shill, trust me, but our government does have in place many measures to curb speculation and rein in runaway prices. So there are things like the loan to value limit and the total debt servicing ratio that I'm sure home buyers are familiar with. I think the general consensus is that prices may ease or even slump at some point in the future, but it's unlikely to be as drastic as a housing bubble. So the next comment, as long as the prices of HDB flats keep climbing, forget any drastic downward force of private properties. I think what they're trying to say is is there any relationship between HDB and condo prices? Well, there's definitely a connection between the two. People sell their HDB flats. A lot of them intend to upgrade to a condo. So when HDB resale flat prices rise, then these upgraders will have the liquidity to buy a more expensive condo. For example, when someone sells $1 million HDB home, that person then has the ability, of course aided by bank financing and their own savings, to buy, say, a $2 million condo. So you can see how there's that sort of relationship. That's not to say, of course, that if HDB prices keep climbing, then condo prices will run away and then it'll be a huge property bubble and then poof, I mean, it will also depend on lots of other factors like supply, or who knows, the government might introduce a new cooling measure. The next comment is about the government rolling back on ABSD measures for locals and PRs. To be fair, during Budget 2024, the government already made some revisions for ABSDs for developers. So what they did was reduce the rates developers have to pay as long as they sell 90% of units in the project. Well, the government very, very rarely rolls back or relaxes its cooling measures. They were introduced for a reason, to keep the property market stable and sustainable. So one of the few times a measure was actually eased was in 2017. The government cut seller stamp duty rates and relaxed the total debt servicing ratio framework back then. So the last comment is on unsold inventory not being at historical highs. Yes, I agree, and that's why it's in the story. So the number of unsold private homes in Q4 2023 was around 17,000 units, which is still well below the average from the past 40 quarters of nearly 24,000 units. And what happened is, during the pandemic, unsold stock plunged very, very significantly, and that caused the market to be severely undersupplied. This in turn caused prices to rise very drastically. Between 2019 and 2023, prices rose by a staggering 33.7%. This increase in unsold stock is simply a sign of supply catching up with demand, and that's actually a good thing for us who want to buy a home, because it may help to ease prices, which is what everyone wants, right? Of course, having this larger supply of units, not just from unsold stock, but also because there are more project launches in the coming year, well, that may not bode well for some residential projects that are approaching that 5-year ABSD deadline, especially those that are left with a significant number of unsold units left. So are more unsold private homes a cause for concern for us? I really don't think so. For one, experts say there aren't very many projects with a significant number of unsold units, and anyway, the current level of unsold inventory is not that high. Underlying buying demand also seems resilient, and it doesn't seem like we are in for any financial recession in the coming year. So I think everything is alright for now. We are good. It's all good. So if you have any comments or questions on the property market, please feel free to leave it down below. BT will look at it.